If you enjoy gardening, get to know your friends at the Franklin Garden Club. Learn more. Become a member. Send an email to franklingardenclubma@gmail.com. Local community radio in the public interest. You're listening to WFPR-LP 102.9, Franklin Public Radio.
Recording? I'm glad you reminded me of that. Let me get that set up. Bear with us, folks.
Recording in progress.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 9th, 2022 meeting of the Franklin Conservation Commission. Before we begin our meeting this evening, I have a few notes to read. Due to concerns regarding COVID-19, the Conservation Commission meeting is available to be either attended in person or participating using the Zoom platform. The Zoom platform can be used in two fashions. One is by phone, cell phone, landline, by dialing the number 929-205-6099 and putting in the meeting number 830-6986-7063, or using a computer, tablet, iPad, etc., using the Zoom application and simply putting in the meeting number 830-6986-7063. If you're having trouble accessing the link, and I know in the past the Zoom application on computers has been a little sticky, be patient, you'll get in. For those that are attending this meeting virtually, I want to assure them that they will have an opportunity to ask questions, etc. The way we run the meeting typically is to call on the individual or their representative. We then allow the agent to respond and the commissioners. Once the commissioners are able to respond, the chair, which is I, will call for any public residential comments. So with that being said, I do want to do a roll call. First, I'm William Batchelor. I'm chair of the Conservation Commission. Vice Chair Jeff Milne.
Jeff Milne's here, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Jeff Livingstone. Noted Commissioner Livingstone is not with us. Commissioner Patrick Gallagher. Note Commissioner Gallagher is not with us this evening. Commissioner Andrew Mazzucchelli.
Present.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioner Richard Johnson.
Present.
Thank you, Richard. And finally, Commissioner Michael Ryan.
Present.
Thank you, Michael. We also have with us the Franklin Conservation Agent, Miss Brika Lee Goodlander. Good evening, Brika. And from the Franklin Conservation Office, Tyler Pazlaski. So without further ado, I will open the public hearing. The first hearing is an NOI for 175 Central Street. East Central Street, forgive me, East Central Street. Is the applicant with us or their representative?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Rick Goodrow with United Consultants.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You did sign in, I believe.
I did.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the application before the commission this evening is a notice of intent for the property located at 175 East Central Street. Property also has frontage on Chestnut Street and is currently used as the Franklin Ford dealership and service area. So
Oh, what happened to Franklin Ford?
what the application for the commission this evening includes is a proposal for approximately a 7,700 square foot addition to the existing building, which is located outside of the wetland jurisdictional area.
Right.
And then an expansion of the parking lot, portions of which will be located within the jurisdictional area. So currently, there's a gravel area utilized for overflow parking in this area here. A portion of that area will be paved, and a stormwater system will be installed where there is no stormwater system at the site currently. The remaining area outside of the pavement, that is currently gravel, approximately 10,000 square feet, will be loomed and seeded and vegetated to restore that area. So what we've identified here is bordering vegetated wetland, which we've shown in blue, 25-foot buffer zone in red, 50-foot buffer zone in green, and the 100-foot buffer zone in purple. The erosion control barrier, which would consist of a 12-inch diameter compost sock, is shown as the orange thick dashed line here, and the limit of work line continues up on both sides, outside of jurisdictional areas. So, to date, we've received review comments from the DEP. They did have one concern with respect to the stormwater. They acknowledged that those service work will be taking place within the building. However, they were concerned with the fact that cars that need repairs may come to the site and have potentially leaking fluids, so they've asked us to look into that. So we are planning on dealing with all the stormwater issues once we've received final review comments from Beta, which to date we have not received.
You have not.
We have not. Additionally, we have received comments from the Franklin Town Engineer, and one of the concerns that he had was with regards to the proposed outfall, which we're proposing to connect into an existing swale area on the abutting property. After the plans were completed and during the review process, it was brought to our attention that there's a permit for a development project currently on that property, and part of their development proposal was to extend the existing town drainage pipe in this area and fill in that swale. So we are gonna be looking at relocating that discharge outlet area further down and to the north and east of where we currently have it. We're working on that with the town engineer. Some easement issues existed, so we're working through that. But again, we wanted to come see the commission, give you an overview of the project, hear what the commission had to say. We anticipate getting review comments from Beta prior to the planning board meeting of approximately 2 weeks, week and a half from now.
Okay.
And then we'll address all of those.
So, Brika, let me just ask you, we don't have DEP yet?
We do.
We do.
We do?
We have
They
DEP, we
gave
just
you-
don't have Beta.
They have a number?
Yes, we have it.
Okay, so
numbered.
we're waiting for Lenore White and WSI, is that correct?
We're just waiting for Beta's comments right
Okay.
now. I went out and I approved the delineation.
Okay,
Speaking prior to reading any Beta's review, they are proposing, it's already in the 25 to 50, 0 to 25 gravel stockpiles, things of that nature, so they're proposing to pull that back and then improve upon
okay.
partially existing and installing new asphalt, so right now, tentatively,
I
okay
noticed
with it.
Lenore White is on with us. Good evening, Lenore.
Hi, how you doing, everyone?
I'm terrific, how are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
I did get a request to submit a proposal for review to Beta. I did do that, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'm certain that Brika Lee can certainly handle, the review of it. So I have not heard back from Beta regarding that proposal for review, so
Okay,
that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Lenore.
perfect, thank you. Michael, do you have any questions regarding this project as of this date?
No questions
None?
today.
How about yourself, Jeff?
Jeff Mill, no questions, thank you.
Andrew?
I have no questions at this time, thank you.
Okay, Richard?
No questions at this time.
Okay, obviously since Beta's not in, and on the proviso, there's nothing draconian, I just don't understand what could happen, but nevertheless, we'll wait until it comes in. It's a public hearing, one that will be continued, but nevertheless, if anybody from the public has a question while we have their representative here, the engineering people here, now would be the time to ask on East Central Street. Anyone? Excuse me, if you have to sign, did you sign in? No. You have to sign in, and then you have to take a microphone and give your name and address your question, please. There's a clipboard right over here on that far desk. If you would be kind enough to sign in, and then use the microphone after you give your name and where you live.
How can I sign in from the Zoom call?
Does not need to. You are you're on the recording, so I don't believe you don't need to. You will be next after this.
Yeah, one at a time, please. Are both mics hot?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can use either mic.
Yep, right on the mic.
Either one.
Either one. Thanks, Will, sorry.
requesting
Would you give your name?
I'm Dr. Anthony Bonina.
Good evening.
I'm the guy on the corner there. So, I would like to get a copy of whatever you guys are proposing, so I can peruse it.
You would like what?
A copy? Can I
You
get a
can,
copy?
you can get any materials you need through the agent, which is Ms.
Okay. Is
Brika
that okay?
Lee.
Yep,
Simply go down to the conservation office on the first floor.
Okay.
Come in the door, you hook a hard right and go down the, you'll see the sign.
Okay.
Go in there, and they'll be happy to review any of the materials that are being reviewed currently, with the understanding these are not final.
Sure.
And the reason is because we're waiting for the outside consulting engineers to give their report.
Okay.
Okay?
The other question I have, is there another meeting that addresses other issues going on besides conservation for this particular property?
Is there another meeting
Yes, like,
with us?
do you know of a planning board meeting or something that?
We don't get involved in planning board.
Okay, so.
I don't want to even know what the planning
Where do I
board is
get that
doing.
information for this property?
We can't affect either of those communities. The
Okay.
Conservation Commission stands on
All right,
its
because I got a
own.
letter in the mail that said they're having a meeting tonight.
Yeah,
and I'm-
whatever the planning board does, they do.
Yeah.
And whatever we do, we do. We're only involved in terms of wetlands.
Okay.
Not in terms of the engineering as such and
All right. there's
road
no-
surveys. The planning board has other issues they deal with.
Okay, and I can just get that online?
yes, you can go to the town one.
I don't even think, have they had a meeting yet at the planning
It's
board?
the
No.
Monday before our
Okay.
hearing, so 2
Yeah,
weeks.
so,
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay.
yeah, if you stay in touch with Brika Lee, she will be happy to give you the dates of when they're meeting, but we don't interface for a good reason, because that's a conflict of law.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Hello? Can I ask about,
Can
My
you
name
speak
is
up just a
Kevin
little
Keith.
bit? I'm having trouble hearing this.
okay,
Name?
my name is Kevin Keith. I
Yeah.
own 33 Chestnut Street,
Yes.
and I want to ask about the drainage pipe, the connections, and the treeing around it. Looking at the schematics, it's not really saying what's happening. There is like something to block the water from getting in there, but it doesn't describe how that work is going to happen and what's going to happen to my property when you're doing this work.
Okay.
So I'd like to know, oh,
Here-
go ahead.
Here's the problem that the chair has with that question. Until we
Okay.
get the final consulting report in, we can't comment on what may be or not be problems with drainage. Until we get the final review by the environmental engineers, it's kind of a premature question to ask. This is gonna be continued. This is going till the 23rd at least. So my suggestion is, I mean, it's premature to answer that because I want to see what the environmental engineers have to say about drainage. We can't predict one way or another. We can only deal in the facts.
Okay, so can I ask about then, there's going to be work done, and is that more of a planning question or more of a conservation wetlands question?
Brika?
It would be more of a planning board question. So if it's outside, if the drainage is outside of any jurisdictional wetland resource, so the buffer zone or the wetland in this case, that would be better suited for planning.
Thank you.
What's the buffer zone? Is it the 25 foot? buffer zone or the
It's
50
zero,
foot?
oh, good question, 0 to 100. So it'd
Okay,
just
so
be in
that-
this
that-
upper corner here. So any drainage
that-
back on this side, towards the street portion of the parcel would be directed towards planning board.
Okay.
But if it's in the 100-foot zone, then it's for the conservation committee,
Yep.
is that true?
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Outside the
So-
100-foot
so-
area, we have no jurisdiction.
correct. So
But-
your
but
question
my
may be
property's-
geared to both boards, but we don't know
Okay,
yet
both
until
boards.
we receive Beta's review.
Conservation's authority ends at 100 feet.
Yep,
So the picture says that my property's in that 100-foot
Yep.
zone. If you look at the picture, there's something that says pipe, and that pipe ends on my property. And it runs the length of my property, and I want to know how that'll affect my property. Any concerns I have with, will there be any flood insurance issues, things like that, while that work is going on? Is that Conservation Committee type stuff?
yes, as it relates to the buffer zone. Yep, so, if you want, you can send me an email. It's bgoodlander@franklinma.gov. And when I receive, Beta's review, I can give you that report. It'll also be put on the website. But until I have that, unfortunately, it's a very nuanced answer.
Yeah, I get it. This is complicated stuff, and I appreciate your patience.
Yeah, not a problem.
Are we good? Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Yes, no? No. Again, any other questions from the public? It appears not. Therefore, and thank you for the update, I will ask for a motion to continue the hearing on the NOI for 175 East Central Street to June 23rd at 7:01, please.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Milne, I'll give you a motion to continue the public hearing for Franklin Ford NOI to June 23rd, 7:01.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Andrew Kelly. I second that.
Thank you. Let's ask the commissioners for a vote. Richard Johnson, do you vote to continue the hearing?
Richard Johnson votes to continue.
Thank you. Michael Ryan?
Vote to continue.
Thank you. This is Chairman Batchelor. I vote to continue.
Jeff Milne, I vote to continue.
Mazzucchelli?
Andrew Kelly, I vote to continue.
We will continue the NOI for 175 East Central Street to June 23rd at 7:01. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Okay, second public hearing we have is an NOI for 585 King Street. 585 King Street. Is the applicant or their representative with us?
We're coming up.
No.
Is that your easel?
Yes.
No.
Yes, ma'am.
DEP number?
It doesn't have a DEP.
For what?
Yeah. It doesn't have a DEP. Yeah.
It's listed here. I don't believe we do. No.
No.
We have no DEP.
Okay.
So that's automatically going to spike the ball.
Right.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Your
Can you hear
name?
me okay? Mark Manganello with
Oh,
LEC
hi, Mark.
Environmental.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Terrific. Thank you.
Josh Berman is also here from Marcus Partners. They are the applicants on this project.
Good evening, Josh. How are you?
Great.
Perfect. All right. You have the floor.
Thank you. So we've been before you a few times, as I'm
Yes.
sure you'll recall. We've been working our way through the peer review process. We're addressing comments from Lenore White and from Beta sort of simultaneously. This past Friday, we submitted a package of information, which is our second supplemental information package, addressing as many of Lenore's comments as we could at this time. So I'm going to go through that quickly, and I think what I'll do is just pause under each heading, and we can You guys can ask questions, or Lenore can comment and ask questions, and then we'll just move through them in order.
Good.
The first item is the alternatives analysis. So you'll recall that we've spent quite a bit of time and submitted quite a bit of information about the alternatives analysis already. We've explored alternative means of access to the property, both to the west, to the east from King Street, and we evaluated other properties on the market in the town of Franklin. And the most recent request was to evaluate other properties owned by the property owner. So the submittal includes a list of those properties and basically a discussion of a particular property that seemed like it was a reasonable possibility as an alternative site on Grove Street, but it was found to be impractical as an alternative due to significant wetland issues beyond the issues we have at this property. That's kind of where we're at with the alternatives analysis at this point. I don't know if you have any specific questions about that, or perhaps Lenore does.
Chair doesn't. Any commissioners have any questions about the alternative analysis? I'd like Brika and Lenore to speak to that, if we could. Brika, do you want to start?
Sure. So, we met. Would you be able to expand upon why Old Forge Hill Road and the roads to the south of the Grove Street property are not viable for access? Because if I were to go to Franklin GIS or any sort of mapping system, and I were to look at the Grove Street property, it does look like there are access points from the south. So why would a stream crossing be required?
Yes, I'm going to let Josh speak to that.
So we looked at the access point, and the turning radiuses, as well as the slope to get up to Old Forge Hill, is not conducive to the industrial environment that we're looking to do, as well as the parcel is not wide enough. There's also topo challenges that don't allow to fit, an industrial warehouse distribution on it. So, additionally to the access coming up, the parcel itself is not wide enough, nor is the topo is too challenging.
Thank you, Josh. Lenore, do you want to comment on the alternative analysis as well?
Sure. I did comment on it. Actually, I'd sent a review memo over to Beta earlier this week in the hopes that they had sent it in to you folks, but I'm surmising they did not. But regarding the alternatives analysis, I think the commission, I would sort of remind the commission of what we did for an alternatives analysis over on Mastro Drive, where it was kind of a similar situation where although the project purpose was a different project purpose, there was one possible crossing over a perennial stream, and there was another area where they could access the lot, but it required 2 intermittent stream crossings and a lot of BVW alterations. And ultimately what happened was the commission opted to go for the lot with the perennial stream crossing as the most viable alternative, because it truly resulted in far less overall environmental impact. So I understand that the applicant has said that, there's a perennial stream there, but I think that's, there's no, first of all, I'm sure Mark understands that there's no replication required for riverfront areas. So you wouldn't have that 12,000 square feet of BVW, presumably, to try to fit in someplace. It just seems like that alternative hasn't really been looked at from a comprehensive point of view for wetlands impacts. I understand there may be now some topographic issues. I don't know if it's really not a wetland issue. It's more of a construction issue, but I had requested that the applicant do more detailed work on that Grove Street possibility, because their wetlands rationale is limited to the fact that it's a perennial stream. And like I said, the Mastro Drive application was the same thing, and we ended up going with the access for perennial streams because it was far less overall environmental impact. So my one comment on the Grove Street, which is outlined in my memo, is that we need more information on Grove Street before we can compare it to the current proposed access point, because we know what we have over there on King Street. We know we have two intermittent streams, that one of them is being, lost, although somewhat replicated. We have over 12,000 square feet of BVW alterations that we're trying to fit in over there. So there's a lot of impacts over there on King Street. And I don't know that Grove Street presents those same kind of challenges, because simply being a riverfront area isn't really that much of a challenge, because, like I said, regulations don't require any replication for riverfront area. And if it's truly a limited project, it very well may meet the regulations for access at that location. So that kind of sums up my Grove Street comments.
Would anybody like to comment on that, please? Josh?
Sure. We're happy to do analysis on the wetlands there, but that's not a piece of parcel that's, equivalent to what we'd be building here. And also, the seller is not willing to sell the parcel. So,
they own it, don't they? They own it.
Yeah, we approached them about buying it a couple of years ago. It's not for sale, is what we're being told. So, we're happy to do the wetland.
That's all.
But Josh, the owner is the one that matters. It's not the applicant. That's why we had you redo the alternatives analysis, because the alternatives analysis says, does the owner have any other parcels? Not the applicant. I mean, the owner signed the notice of intent with full intention to, obviously to push this project forward, but it's the Conservation Commission's determination to find out whether there are any alternatives that the owner currently has or could have that are suitable.
So we have two pieces of property, both owned by the same person.
Correct, understood.
However, one's being withdrawn for whatever reason, none of our business, but if that offers more opportunity and you want to withdraw that, then the pressure is to make this fit, and what happens if we vote it doesn't? I think there's got to be more due diligence here in terms of alternative analysis and what best fits the landscape. Obviously, the agent has some difficulty with the current suggestion. WSI, it appears there is information yet that is yet to come to us for our analysis. I mean, we can't make a vote on anything anyway right now, you know that. What I'm trying to do is pave a way for a successful conclusion on this project. However, let me just be candid. You got one owner, two pieces of property. This one may fit better than this one, but I don't want to do that. That's going to restrict, I don't know, significantly or not. We don't, none of us know. But that's a high risk maneuver.
No, I understand your point, and I think Josh does as well, and I think the simple response is we'll provide you more information.
Okay. Yeah, I really think everybody just needs to claw down on everything and say what makes sense. Because wetlands are wetlands, water is water. That's not gonna change whether it's here or here. The impact may, and if the impact is significant enough, I can tell you what's gonna happen. So my suggestion is and again, my colleagues here, I'm just one commissioner, everybody gets a say. How do you say, Mr. Ryan?
So I thought I heard you saying that regardless of the wetlands issue, the property just doesn't fit your need. Is that basically what you're saying?
Correct. That's correct. It doesn't work for industrial warehousing.
Yeah.
And, yes.
That remains to be seen.
Okay.
Commissioner Milne?
I have some big problems with the proposal on King Street, based upon you're crossing wetlands, and we haven't really heard at this point about a 25-foot buffer zone on either side of that access. So I think the current project on King Street, I still have problems with that.
Okay.
We're getting to that 25-foot buffer zone in a minute.
Thank you.
Okay. How about Commissioner Mazzucchelli?
Yeah, just to echo my colleagues' points, I just feel as though like more needs to be sort of nailed down in terms of everything that was just mentioned, especially with regard to the 25-foot zone as well.
Well, that's coming up. We can get more information on that, but that's a valid point because we are not a friendly board when you get into the 25-foot zone. You should know that.
We got the message.
Yeah. Commissioner Johnson, do you have a comment on this, or do you agree with the tone of the other commissioners, or do you have a different opinion?
I think you pretty well covered it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Brika, do you want to make another comment before we get into the 25 issue?
Not on the topic of alternatives analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, you want to?
Yeah, there's just one other point I wanted to make on the alternatives. The question has been asked, I think a couple of times, about reducing the size of the building, right? It's out of your jurisdiction, as you know, but I think there's, well, the question has been asked if the building size was reduced, would that reduce the size of the wetland crossing, right? Would that be a pathway to reduce wetland impacts? And so we just want to be clear about that, in that any type of warehouse building up there, whether it's 60,000 or 600,000 square feet, is going to require a crossing similar to what we have because of the requirements for truck traffic back and forth, pavement width, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone.
Comment? Okay.
Understood?
No, satisfied with the comment? Yeah. It's going to be continued, so I don't want to get too pointed in terms of our direction, because that's not fair to you.
Yep, it's fine.
There's still a lot of dialogue that has to take place, and I would like this project to make the most sense and be developed, but nevertheless, it is, we are stewards of conservation, so that all comes into play. It's a public hearing. With what's been said, there's still a lot of unknowns, but nevertheless, anyone has the right to ask a question. Does anybody have a question?
I have a question on what you were talking about.
Okay, you need to sign in. You know the procedure. And then you need to get a microphone. Thank you.
Chair, I think they still wanted to go through their packet.
I'm sorry?
I think they still wanted to go through their packet, and I still had some additional comments. Are we taking?
Oh, yeah, I just want to get.
Public comment each.
In other words, what I'm trying to do is
segment?
layer this thing, take care of
Got
each
it.
layer so that we don't get caught at the end with a whirlwind of going back and forth. I'd like to stay focused on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are on point.
Okay.
So two quick.
Your name?
Sorry, Karen Miller.
Yes, Karen.
Washington Street,
Good
the
evening.
Chair.
Yes,
Good
we know
evening,
you.
how are you?
I'm great.
Two kind of quick questions to the point. It was discussed in the meeting before that you were looking at the other available properties by the owner. And just for clarification, under the mass reg for that, is those available properties only in the town, or does it stretch to if the owner has properties in Rentham, Bellingham, like surrounding areas? Or does the reg specifically say it needs to be in the town of Franklin?
It's within the municipality.
Sorry?
It's within the municipality, so it's within town.
Thank you. And the other one was just, I'm not sure if you answered the question, but when they talked about, they mentioned that the Grove Street property didn't quite work well. And so I wouldn't expect then, if that's a harder crossing or whatever, that the owner to come forward to you in whatever, 2 months, 6 months, a year, and say they want to build something else there if they're trying to say it's not an appropriate build kind of thing. But, so you just kind of, you kind of think of things like that, and if it's not for sale, it's not for sale, but that's not part of the criteria, correct? It's alternative property?
That's what you're speaking about is theoretical. And I can't tell the owner what they're going to do here or there. That's not our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is come forward with a plan that makes the most sense and in accordance with the laws of the state and the federal laws regarding wetlands. And what we're trying to do is accommodate something being built by asking questions. But I am not, nor are my colleagues, we are not wetland scientists. for attorneys, medical, et cetera. What the thought process is by the owner on either parcel means nothing to me.
Let me rephrase that a little bit then, sorry, I didn't rephrase it.
Well, I mean,
If the property.
somebody owns property, property A and property B, they don't want to use property B, that's their right, they own it. And next month after, say we approve property A,
Yep.
and that gets done. But all of a sudden, 2 months later, property B, they want to do this, well, that's their right. As long as.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't phrase it properly, sorry. Let me
Perhaps not,
rephrase it.
you know, as long
Does-
as it's done within the jurisdiction of the law.
Yeah, so sorry, let me rephrase the question, I kind of went off a little bit in it. So if, if the person owns property A, property B, and they say, hey, property A and property B work semi-equally, but I don't want it on property B, I want it on property A.
That's
So
their
when you
right.
look to the reg, and the reg says you have to have an alternative property, you're not afforded the luxury of saying, no, I really want it on A versus B, because the reg just says alternative property.
We can't do that. I can't tell them to put it on property B.
No, I'm
All I
asking the
can s-
question.
all we have
Oh, no,
the
no, I'm
right-
asking the question.
Pardon?
I'm asking it as a question.
They would have to prove without a doubt that property B, they would have to back it up with some sort of facts, some sort
Right.
of testing, which is
If that's what they
forthcoming.
choose
Yeah,
to do.
if
We're
that-
not telling them they can do that. It seems like an option, but if they don't want to carry the option, that's fine.
So that's where the chair
Okay.
was saying they're restricting themselves, they're making it harder, because
Right.
now they have to prove that the 585 King Street property is 110% viable because there is this other property.
Right.
Regardless of personal or, you know,
Property A has
Property
some,
feelings.
like, poor word, complexion problems for what we want to do. I'm not saying they can't be overcome. Property B may well have some complexion problems but that's not ours to give.
Right, and I
We're just
wasn't
having
asking.
dialogue right now because we're still in the formative stage. This thing is going until at least the 23rd. And all we're trying to do is, between WSI and Beta and our town conservation agent and certainly the commissioners, is find the best solution, if possible,
Yep,
within the
understood, and
law.
I'm just trying to get the best information possible, so I
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
No, that's
Thank you.
okay. Those are fair questions. We appreciate it. Anybody else? No. So we're gonna continue it.
I'd like to continue my presentation.
Oh, you did? Did you, you didn't do the 25, did you?
No.
no?
Of course you did. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So the wetland replication areas have been changed since we last met. We submitted a new plan, which is up on the screen here. And actually, Brika, could you scroll down to the bottom sheet? Great. So obviously, these are the wetland replication areas with the vertical hatching are on the left. The proposed roadway is in gray on the right, just so everyone's oriented. You can see that the replication areas are within the existing access road. I wanted to make sure that was clear. So the existing access road extends along that property line. There's a little stream crossing there currently, and then it continues toward the top of the sheet here. So those replication areas, in large part, are the existing access road being essentially restored to a wetland. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. I know that question had come up. Both of these replication areas you see here are also reconfigured to preserve a 25-foot buffer zone. So you can see it's set back from the proposed road 25 feet at the top of the screen and at the bottom of the screen. So with this change, we no longer need a variance from your bylaw. And we know that was an important point, and we wanted to make sure that was clear to
Are
everyone.
you in agreement with that?
Yeah, as
You are.
long as it's out, as long as there's 25 feet from the
Okay.
proposed road, and
Okay,
that
so
meets the
You're in
bylaw.
concert with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it out of the easement?
Yes, if you could scroll up a little bit, just to the top here, I think it's just off. Keep going a little more. Can you go a little further? Right there, you can see where that flared end section comes off the road right there. That was previously part of one of our replication areas. And the comment was made that that's partially within the cleared electric easement out there and that would be problematic
Okay.
for establishing, tree cover within the replication area. But we've abandoned that area altogether, so that's no longer part of the replication plan.
That's good.
These modifications we actually expanded the one down by King Street slightly to make up the square footage, and we also expanded replication area. Yep, that one was expanded. And if you can go to the other sheet, this one right here was expanded also to ensure that we comply with your bylaw requirement for a 2-to-1 ratio of replication to
Okay.
wetland fill.
And you're in concert with that, Brika?
Yep.
Thank you.
So
I don't
I think
have a
I'll
problem with
pause
that.
there and ask if you or Lenore have any questions about the reconfigured replication areas.
Lenore, do you want to comment, please?
Sure, thank you. Mark, so all of the replication areas have been removed from the power line easement area?
Correct.
Okay, because looking at the plans, I was unclear about that because it's hard to tell on the plans. You have the overhead wires, but then there's also, you have to look for the delineation of where the easement actually extends to. So I presume that New England Power has the right to do anything within the easement, not just under the power lines. And so that's my question is, okay, all the replication areas now are not located beneath the easement.
Those are off.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. Because it was hard to tell there on those revised plans.
Yep. And I
Yeah,
should,
that erases the
Are
25.
these maps in our packet?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on the Google Drive if you want to look at it, but
Yeah.
she has print packages. I did look at it on the Google. But that eliminates a huge concern of ours, so that's good.
Yes.
and we also, there was a comment about hydrology within the wetland replication areas. In terms of their function once they're constructed. So to confirm the groundwater elevations out there, we went out and did some test pits within each of the 4 wetland replication areas. We submitted those in this package of information, and they confirmed that the proposed grading plan for each of these replication areas is suitable and will intercept groundwater in a manner that will establish wetland hydrology. So we're much more comfortable with the design from that perspective.
Brigga, do you have a comment on that?
I have actually a concern raised by Commissioner Gallagher. He emailed me ahead of time. He's quite concerned with the grade, I think, based on our conversation earlier, that it's 4 feet from proposed finished elevation within 12 inches of water, correct?
The cut will be 4 feet, yeah, at the
okay.
upper part of the larger one that we were just looking at.
Yep.
There'll be about a 4-foot cut, correct, at the highest side.
So commissioners, you can condition to stabilize that if you do choose to move forward with the project, just as an FYI. And then, are you able to expand just a little bit for the commission on how these replication areas will be viable long-term with the groundwater table and runoff as it relates to buffer zone and the resources?
Yes, so the way they're constructed is they're excavated down to a foot below the proposed finish elevation. So essentially, the excavator will remove the vegetation, the existing soil down a foot below what our finish elevation is. Then we backfill with a foot of organic rich compost, we call like a wetland soil mix, right? And so once that's placed at a height, at an elevation, where it's within 12 inches of the seasonal high groundwater table. So each spring when the water rises, it will come up to within a foot of the surface, and that hydrology supports the wetland plantings that we're going to plant in each of these areas. So long-term, the groundwater table will be there close enough to the surface to support wetland plants in each of these areas. And that's how it will function long-term.
Thank you.
You good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Lenore? Any comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mark. I had a little bit of trouble finding the test pit locations. Are they on the plans? I know you said I saw the, the data sheets for the soil logs, but I could not find where the test pits
Yes,
were.
they are not on the plans. On each of the data sheets, it tells you the location based on the nearest wetland flag. So it'll say like 10 feet up gradient from wetland flag 49.
Okay, all right. I'll have to look more closely at that because I was looking at the plans for a little TP or something. Okay, thank you. So when you get my memo, it'll say that, but I'll relook at those,
Good.
those logs to try to identify exactly where those test pits were. And it sounds like you did the test pits for each of the 4 different proposed wetland replication areas. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll take another look at those.
Okay. We're getting there slowly.
We're getting there.
It's a process, you know that.
Yes, yes. The other information we submitted, there was additional test pits done to support the stormwater management system design. There were questions asked about the location of the infiltration basin that's partially within the buffer zone. I know Beta is reviewing that information, so unless there are any specific comments about that, I think we can probably move past that pretty quickly. Bottom line, in summary, the test pits confirm that the location of the basin is the most suitable location on the property based on slope, underlying soil material, and groundwater elevations. Again, Beta is reviewing that, so I would expect a conclusive technical finding from them at some point in the near future.
Okay. Questions thus far, Commissioner Ryan?
A couple questions.
Okay.
I'm just having trouble with that, the upper schematic. Where on the property are those 2 areas?
Yes. So the one on the left, if you're going in the current access road, driving into the site, and you take a left and follow the wetland line sort of parallel to the electric easement, it's in there along the toe of the slope. You can see the topographic contours there are fairly close together. There's a relatively steep slope from there down to the wetland. So you'll recall as you walk up into the main part of the site, there's kind of a hill down to into the woods, really. And that's where this would be. It's sort of at the toe of that slope where the topography flattens out. And the other one next to it is, you can see right there, it says Interstate 495. So that's up on the far corner of the property.
All right, thank you.
You good? Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Yeah, so the source of the water for these areas is groundwater in all cases?
That's the primary source.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly stormwater runoff from surrounding areas that definitely washes into this wetland system and at times provides a secondary source of hydrology, but the primary source of hydrology for long-term success in these areas is groundwater.
Okay.
Thank you. No further questions.
Excellent.
No questions.
Mazzucchelli.
I have no questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Johnson.
No questions at this time.
Boy, quiet tonight.
All right.
You like that?
We're getting there.
Yes, we are.
Last item on the list is we were asked to discuss the limited project provisions for culvert replacement projects. So we provided quite a bit of information in support of the culvert design. I'm not sure if Lenore commented on that. I suspect she probably did in her latest memo, so it might be quickest to allow her to speak and see if she has any thoughts in response to what we submitted, since it's quite a technical matter.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mark. I think my questions that I further asked for, they were right out of the regulations. There were talks about these limited projects where you're replacing a culvert, and it talks about some of the impacts. And I think there are some that Beta raised, and I've sort of reiterated that in my recent memo, that being there was some concern about the fact that the existing culvert was acting as somewhat of a dam, and there was some backwater issues. And so Beta, and I think the regulations are both sort of asking the same thing in terms of like, okay, what's going to happen now that we take this, obstruction out, i.e. the old culvert, and replace it with a newer one in a different location? Will that affect upstream or downstream, hydrology? And that's part of sort of the overall, design of these streams. And I'm quite sure you guys have thought about that, and maybe I just haven't fully seen it in any of your replies there to date.
Yeah, Beta had asked that we do some additional survey work of the stream channel, and they had asked for some information based on that to sort of support the design, which I think is in line with your comment. So I think there's
Correct.
some information forthcoming on that.
Okay.
My sense of the way the system operates as a wetland scientist is I didn't see any evidence out there of extended periods of ponded water on the upgradient side of the culvert. I suspect that water under a significant storm event like today probably moves through the system. It probably backs up because the old culvert is a little bit on the small side. It probably backs up a bit, but then it works its way through. But we'll have to provide some more detailed information about that. I think it sort of speaks to the concept of this system being primarily driven by groundwater. And if that's the case, then I think the proposed culvert's not going to have a significant effect in the proposed roadway as well. It's not going to have a significant effect on hydrology upstream or downstream.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think that's exactly what we're talking about here, sort of just evaluate that, because that is sort of, one of the regulatory concerns. And I think, well, I have not seen it backed up there, but Beta apparently has. So they had sort of the same questions about how the hydrology is going to be maintained to support not only the existing wetland, but of course you're adding 24,000 square feet too. So, just make sure that we have adequate hydrology and adequate, sizing to support this new crossing, and to not have any adverse impacts from taking, the two streams and sort of modifying them to meet the roadway design.
We will provide some additional information on that, I think, in our next package.
Okay. Brika, do you have a comment?
All three of your wetland scientists agree, so that's good.
Right.
That's good.
I get it. Ditto. Not my
There you
not
go.
my expertise, per se. Any questions from any of the commissioners? None? Johnson, no questions?
None.
Okay. Final questions from the public before we continue this?
We do have a DEP file number, by the way.
I'm sorry?
We do have a DEP file number. I just wanted to make sure
It
that
came
the
today.
commissioners were aware of that.
Oh, it did come in?
Yep.
But not on the date we wanted it?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll
it's
have
gonna
it
be
for next
continued
meeting.
Anyway. There's obviously more dialogue that's got to take place and more negotiation, but we did make headway tonight,
Great.
and we did answer some questions, so I wanna thank you for that. Since it's going to be continued, I will take a motion to continue the NOI.
Chair? I have
Hello?
2 additional comments, if that's all right.
I'm sorry?
2 additional comments, if that's all right, just to put some.
Oh,
things
you have
on
2
record.
additional comments?
Yes,
I
yeah, that's all right.
apologize, thank you.
There's work proposed on the adjacent property as far as stockpiling within buffer zone and grading, is that right? So we will actually need the adjacent property owner to come and sign the NOI. I have a letter here, but I spoke to Mark and it is not
They're going to use the other parcel for,
for stockpiling with rep area 1,
Yeah,
right?
we're going to get you a revised signed NOI form to cover that
Oh, okay.
request.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
wanted
that's a
to.
big no-no unless
So
you're.
I wanted to, before we continued that, and then I can save this for a later date. I had comments on the construction sequence. I already kicked my comments back to them, so I'm expecting
Why
a
don't we
revised.
wait till we get more
Yeah.
dialogue going,
Yep.
because just like tonight, at least for myself, I've learned more than I had
Sure.
last time, and I felt more comfortable with where we were, but
Yeah.
let's manage that out. Questions, anybody, before okay, I will take a motion.
Mr. Batchelor, I'm sorry, Bill, can I interrupt? Sorry to interrupt.
Of course you can, go ahead, Lenore.
Thank you. I just have one point on the fact that we now have a new owner. I just want to make sure that that new owner does not create any new abutters.
Oh.
Because those abutters would have to be notified as well.
Oh,
I don't know enough about the property to know that there's no new abutters that are now going to be, should have been notified as, abutters if there's now a new property added.
We will check that 100%.
Thanks, Lenore.
Okay.
that appears to be if that appears to be the case, we have to do an abutter notification.
Right.
That's gonna really slow this thing down, yeah. Well, what we'll do, thank you, Lenore, that's
Good catch.
You're welcome.
good information to know. We're gonna continue this, the NOI, for 585 King Street until the 23rd at 7:02. I'll take a motion. There's still a lot to be done.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Miller, motion to continue as stated.
Thank you, Commissioner
Andy
Mazzarelli.
Mazzucchelli, I second.
You wanna vote on it, Commissioner Ryan?
I vote to continue.
Chairman Batchelor, vote to continue.
Jeff Miller votes to continue.
Andy Mazzucchelli, vote to continue.
Johnson?
Votes to continue.
Thank you for your presentations, both of you. We'll see
Thank
you
you.
on the 23rd, 7:02. Thank you, Bree. Thank you, Lenore.
All righty. Good night, folks. Have a good weekend.
Take it
Good
easy,
night,
everyone.
Lenore, thank you.
You're welcome.
That concludes the public hearings for this evening. Now we have the general business. Oh, fun. We have a certificate of compliance for the NEP transmission line. Rika?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually believe, thanks, getting reorganized. I believe actually the applicant is on as well, Allison Milliman there. I went out- Hello, hi. I went out with Allison to review the work that had been conducted to sign off. I looked at the replication area for this project. It is over 70% wetland plant, or 70% successful, 50% is dominant wetland plants, so I suggest granting the COC.
Questions from the commissioners? Ryan, no?
No questions.
Milne?
Jeff Miller, no.
I have no
Mazzucchelli?
questions.
Johnson?
No.
Batchelor, no. So you recommending approval?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody object to that?
No.
All right, I have a recommendation for approval of the certificate of compliance for the NEP transmission line. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Miller, I give you a motion as stated for the NDP transmission line.
Do I have a second, Commissioner Ryan?
Second.
Thank you. Let's take a vote. Commissioner Mazzucchelli?
Andy Mazzucchelli, I vote to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
I vote to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Milne?
Jeff Miller votes to approve.
Chairman Batchelor votes to approve. Ryan?
Commissioner Ryan votes to approve.
The certificate of compliance for the NEP transmission line is approved. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a second COC, certificate of compliance for 216 Prospect Street.
Yeah, this is an unique situation. The applicant is no longer the current homeowner.
Everybody bailed on this project.
Everybody
What
bailed.
happened?
Everybody bailed.
Did they run away or what?
Yeah, they moved. The previous homeowner installed a new septic to sell their home, sold their home. The representative is no longer under contract. The current homeowner actually was very surprised that there was an outstanding permit. So I recommend issuing the COC. I went out, verified that
You
the
did?
septic, yeah, I conducted a site
You're
visit.
satisfied?
I am, yes.
Good for me. Commissioners, Mazzucchelli?
I have no questions, thank you.
Jeff
Bill.
Milne, no questions.
Ryan?
No questions, thank you.
Batchelor, no questions. Johnson?
No questions.
All right, let's take a vote. I'll take a motion to approve the certificate of compliance for 216 Prospect Street, Milne.
Jeff Milne, I give you a motion to approve the COC for
You
216
said.
Prospect Street.
Thank you. I'll take a second, Mazzucchelli.
I second, thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a vote. Ryan?
I vote to approve as stated.
Thank you. Johnson?
Johnson votes to approve.
Thank you. Batchelor, I vote to approve.
Milne votes to approve.
Peter
Mazzucchelli?
Mazzucchelli, vote to approve.
We are approving the certificate of compliance for 216 Prospect Street. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, we have more fun. Violations and enforcements. All right. Fairmont Farms.
We
Talk to me on this one.
have a plan, and I
You
do
have a plan.
see the consultant is
I've
on here,
read it.
so
Yeah.
I actually would like him to go through and present his restoration plan, if that is okay. Does he have access
Is
to share?
anybody here from?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we
Gotcha.
can.
Yes.
Good evening. I'm
evening.
Bruce Webb. I'm from Ecosystem Solutions in Warwick, Rhode Island, representing Mr. Kovashus at 887 Lincoln Street. And so, yes, unfortunately, as we know, there was a volume of fill in the form of mulch brought in on site. 1.75 acres worth of disturbed area within the BVW, and an additional 0.12 in the buffer zone adjacent to the BVW. Is it okay if I share my screen?
You have to. Please,
Yes.
go ahead.
Very good. So, and can everybody see
Yep.
the plan? Okay, so I will begin with its current existing conditions. And you can see from this aerial that was taken in April that there is a fair amount of disturbance within the wetland. So if we return to the restoration plan, the sort of buff-colored area in the center of the plan is mulch. It is just mulch. It is organic in nature. And so we propose removing said mulch to as close to original grade as we can. Where this is organic material, we actually propose leaving a tiny bit of it in place. If we can't get to original grade without scarifying or disturbing the existing in situ soils, we say to actually leave a tiny bit of the mulch in place. The remainder of the disturbed, or the second largest disturbed area, is this sort of pinkish area here. That is where a thin veneer of the topsoil was removed. That topsoil is actually still on site, so we propose restoring that topsoil back into the pink area, returning it to original grade, and that will be seeded with New England wet mix, as will the mulched area. The other areas to the south and to the west, the blue area was planted with blueberries. There was a little bit of mulch placed in that area to support the blueberry plantings. We actually proposed leaving that in its current state, blueberries being a native wetland species that provide habitat. It would be more damaging to the wetland to try and put it back to its original state than to just leave it as is. There is two areas with logs and stones, and they actually appear in aerials going back at least 15 years. The logs, the wood material, is from native trees that were on site. Where that provides, even in their dead state, they provide habitat and carbon, a source of carbon for the soil. We proposed leaving those in place. Same is true of the stones. The stones actually provide habitat. The vehicle required to remove said stones would, again, do more damage than it would actually benefit the wetland. There is two areas of rutting to the south. Our solution for that is to fill said ruts with a organic invasive-free soil and then seed with New England wet mix. And then in the buffer zone off to the east of the disturbed area, There is some mulch in there as well, so we propose, again, removing that mulch and getting as close to original grade as possible, and then seeding that area with a New England upland or conservation mix. So we would have 1.75 acres of restoration in the BBW. That would be, oh, and excuse me, I apologize. There was also an area where there was a duck coop set up, and we propose, it wasn't really disturbed, it was just ducks. So that would also be seeded with New England wet mix. So back to the total disturbed area within the BVW is 1.75 acres. We propose seeding that 1.75 acres with New England wet mix and allowing it to return to a natural state, and restoring the upland area with a upland conservation mix. Now, we should address this area, according to the property owner, has been in agricultural use consistently for quite some time, uninterrupted agriculture use, essentially since they bought the farm. And they do have photos of this area in use as a pastoral area for goats. And the owner would like to continue to use that area for agriculture without, obviously, they can't bring fill into the wetland, we acknowledge that, but that they would like to continue to use that as pasture for goats. So that is why there's no shrubs, there's no tree plantings as part of this. We simply propose restoring it to the state it was in when it was serving as pasture for said goats. And that's really the meat and potatoes of this, if you will. So, any questions?
Brika?
Yep. Okay, so as a background, active use for agricultural land as it pertains to wetlands means that from 1993, it needs to be in use by those definitions, which I can get into, for a consecutive 5 years. Within the past 5 years, CJ has provided me receipts showing that he has been selling the goats, utilizing them. They are in consumption. They're in his revenue, which means that this would qualify as active land. To that point, filling a wetland is not an agricultural exemption, so he recognizes that. I went out two days ago, to verify the delineation. It is delineated fairly conservatively, probably more than what CJ would like. And I do say that this area that is being restored, proposed to be restored, is much more than the original enforcement. So I want to put that out there. Okay, to that point, there are a few other, I'm not entirely sure my pathway here of train of thought, so I'm just gonna start. If you were to look at aerial imagery on this parcel, you might notice that it's been cut. A lot of trees have felled. Felled, and that is fine under an ag exemption, provided they're not being sold for commercial use, which they are not being sold for commercial use. I spoke with CJ about the wet mix seeding. I recommended perhaps planting a few more trees in there to at least restore it a little bit, especially considering he cannot fill this area anymore. He can't utilize it except for passive agriculture. That being, his goats can go in there, they can graze, right? They're not in there full time, right? They're cut up. He rotates. The ducks, they like it because it's wet. So they're happy there. They don't have full access to this area all the time. So that was my recommendation to CJ. I cannot require him to plant trees because of that, but I wanted to make it known that I recommended it, and it was received.
Given the state we're in right now, which
Yep.
is they're in clear violation, they missed the date.
Yep.
It could have been turned to the courts.
Yep.
We chose not to do that because we want to get a solution to this thing.
Yep.
However, that being said, if you got a recommendation, I would think it would be prudent of the parties to embrace that recommendation and put it in, A, their final agreement, and B, with a performance date plan on when all of this is going to be accomplished.
Okay. So I will put a pin in that real quick, Bill.
You're up.
So that's one recommendation. I did see piles of mulch. It's a little jarring reading the restoration plan, and reading that there are 5 to 6 feet of mulch in some areas. Those are stockpiles. Those are stockpiles on top of, maybe 3 to 6 inches of fill of mulch. I am okay with them leaving this much mulch in some areas if they are concerned of scarring the native soils. I don't want that. I don't want them to dig down and scar and start
Well,
removing
because now you
soils,
got
right?
further disturbances.
Right. So that's,
That makes no sense.
that's what I wanted to clarify, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this isn't, what your restoration plan is showing, but they're not leaving material behind just to leave it, they're leaving it as a form of, one, free carbon. They're going to have to seed it anyways, so it's more or less beneficial nutrients, right, to the seed. And it's to prevent further harm.
Mm-hmm.
The ruts, I agree that going in there to smooth out the ruts is
Rika,
not, oh, yep,
Can
go
I
ahead.
just recommend you,
Yep.
you give a number for a thickness?
As far,
recommended thickness
in my recommendations, yes, I will absolutely quantify it.
What are you saying, like a half inch, a quarter inch, an inch?
I would say probably 1/2 inch to an inch. Based on my experience with construction, it really depends on the type of machine, with how precise
How
they
they
can get
remove
down.
it,
Okay,
Right.
okay, thank you.
So I can
Yeah,
follow
you-
up on that, and
Half inch is,
it's
it's,
hard.
yeah, that's a hard grab.
It is.
Without disturbing the ground.
It
So
is.
if they went 3/4 or an inch, okay, I get it.
Yep. I just don't
Well,
want stockpiles. I want to
right.
be able to nudge my toe around and in soils, right?
Thank you, Michael.
Yep, so the rutting within the wetland, typically we would suggest smoothing those out and then seeding. To be able to get in there with a machine would, again, cause more damage unless they put flat mats
That's
down.
the problem.
So
Equipment.
I'm fine putting some, I call it loam, but I'm not from here, so putting loam down and then seeding it, and I'm okay with that. I would not
Okay.
consider that a fill, provided it's within the tire ruts. So, based on all that, I have a few tweaks to the restoration plan, more just semantics and following our bylaw. The plan states straw wattles, we actually need biodegradable compost socks. So then within the phases, I would need to inspect the stakes and the ENS controls prior to any work. And then I would also need to be invited to a pre-construction meeting. Those are within our special conditions. So I suggest putting that in the restoration plan or sending me an amendment, a memorandum, something to that effect. To that point, I would recommend that this work be conducted within the next 30 days. That way you can still plant or seed, do what you need to do to satisfy the requirements of the restoration. And CJ and I did talk about 2 years of monitoring
Okay.
to make sure
so
that everything has coverage. Go ahead, Chair.
This gets back to my original statement.
Yep,
I want it in writing
yep,
as a plan,
yep.
set with dates.
Okay.
Expectations, set down. And a dialogue certainly with you and the agents and the people from Fairmont, because I've no patience if it gets violated again. That'll be it. I'll let the court decide what's gonna happen.
Got it.
I'm willing to have the restoration plan as, and again, I'm only one vote. We're gonna ask the other commissioners how they feel. But, we're in deep water here. And all we're trying to do is give them a break from something that could be really messy. So, Commissioner Ryan, how do you feel about this?
I agree with the agent in all cases. I'm just looking at the, I don't know, I guess this is the north end, and I see that there's a lot of activity within the 25-foot buffer zone. Is that okay?
So that is considered existing. We did talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up. One of my other recommendations was going to be placing wattles around those stockpiles. Ultimately, moving them if required, but because it's existing, that's a hard ask. So I can condition putting BMPs around them. I can condition trying to push them farther away, but other than that, to that point, did you have any comments about future plans for those piles?
The areas of the north, we could definitely do the whatever to protect the
wattles.
Yeah, I don't know what wattles are. I know the socks.
Socks.
Thing. Yeah. Yeah, we could do anything. We're just looking forward to just kind of reclaiming it and restoring it to the best of our abilities just to move past this, because we realize that we obviously made it wrong and we would like to just rectify it.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan.
Jeff Mill, a lot of work went into this plan, and I'm in full agreement with it. Thank you.
I have nothing to add really. Thank you.
Thank you. Johnson?
We're recommending trees. Are the trees gonna stand up to the goats?
We could put collars around them, like,
For how long?
We could do it.
Forever.
We could keep them there.
Rumor
until
has
they're
it that
big
it
enough.
will work.
Yeah.
All right, no further questions.
Thank you. My only comment again, and I mean this sincerely, Bricky, you need to take the lead on this.
Sure.
And I would appreciate the commission getting an update on June 23rd.
Sure.
On, that you have everything in writing, including any addendums that were not on what they have filed, to articulate exactly what it is that's going to be done, and then also date specific.
You got it.
So if everybody's okay with that, we'll just, yes, you have a comment?
Yes.
Would you identify yourself, please?
Roger Trahan, 1 Green Street. I'm also the
Yes, Roger.
chairman of the Agricultural Commission. I'd just like to say that obviously everybody in this room, I think, knows that running a farm is not an easy job nowadays, and CJ has been on the Ag Commission as well, and he has the full support of the Ag Commission as far as any labor or work that we would need to go in and help him out. So I know there's things that need to be fixed, and I'm not saying that's not right, but he has our support to help him fix that, and I hope this goes smoothly.
Well, that's good.
Thank you.
And we will embrace that. Thank
Sure,
you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So what we'll do,
Good to
let's
have
take,
friends.
I'm sorry?
It's good to have friends.
Well, yeah, in high places, yeah. No, it is. I mean, it's difficult. The problem is, it happened. The problem is the dates were violated. There was inactivity, which is not what you want to do. It's the equivalent, no less than if a judge says, I need you to see you back here on the 23rd, and come the 23rd, the judge calls and says, where are we with this, and nobody answers. Well, then you get a bench warrant. With us, you get a continuation, but we're gonna hold you to what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, nobody's suggesting there was malice aforethought on this. It's just we've gotta fix it. So if appropriate, what the chair would recommend, and again, I'm only one vote, is to bring it back to us on the 23rd for an update, please.
Sure.
And to make sure that by then, any addendums and any other languages is put in with the agreement.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I'll work with, is it Bruce? Is that what you prefer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll work with him. Keep in mind, we need everything a week before the hearing, so really your deadline is noon next Thursday.
And we'll give
Very
time.
good.
This is, you know,
Okay.
you don't have to have everything done by the 23rd, but I just want this
Okay.
managed so to completion.
Yeah, we'll
You know,
work on
many
it.
things, sometimes they take more, but as long as it's managed.
Yep, you got it.
So with that said, Commissioner Ryan, do you vote to approve what we have discussed?
I guess I'm confused on the process.
The process
So-
is,
so
the
we're approving
23rd, they're
tonight,
coming
but they're-
back with a full completed proposal on exactly what is to be done that will coalesce everything we discussed tonight along with what has already been planted.
But that's not a continuance?
It is a continuance,
Oh.
but this is a violation order that's honestly out, dated out. So what we're trying to do is bring this back to some form of legally permissible, so it doesn't go to court.
Okay.
I signed the enforcement order, so I have skin in this game. So what I'm trying to do is work it out so that nobody gets hit with a judge's hammer.
Yep, so what we're going to be doing now, other than the minor semantic details with the current restoration plan, is we're drawing up an enforceable action plan, essentially, in other words.
Right.
So what are we voting on right now?
Just to, you're in concert with what we're discussing, it's not an
No,
action.
okay, yes, I'm in
Yeah.
full agreement, thank you.
Because this is not completed yet, and they're coming back on the 23rd because we still haven't got a plan.
That was,
As
that's what I was
directed.
confused about. Okay, yeah, I'm in full agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jeff, do you feel the same way?
I do. Jeff Nolan, I'm in agreement.
Okay, how about Andrew Mills?
I feel the same way, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Richard Johnson?
I feel the same way. Good.
Okay, and the chairman, Bill Batchel. So I think what we'll do is we'll come back on the 23rd and make sure that everything is marshaled the way we discuss, okay?
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody. That's done.
CJ.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
We have another violation enforcement, 305 Union Street. Brika, what's going on in town?
Yeah, so early May, you all signed an enforcement for 305 Union Street, the mill store. There was speculation that there was dumping of potentially hazardous building materials within the, at minimum, 0 to 25 to 50 foot buffer zone to an intermittent stream and then associated BBW. Since then, it's been quite difficult to collaborate between different parties, meaning DEP, asbestos, and the property owner. Unfortunately, but also fortunately, this week DEP was finally able to go out and test for asbestos in the well. Given their timing, the timing of it all, I only just received results. They are not included in your packet. I can tell you that it was confirmed asbestos was in the well.
It has been confirmed?
Yes,
Oh, that's
asbestos
just
materials are in the
wonderful.
well. I am waiting to hear back on if asbestos is actually leached in the water. So as it sits right now, we just have hazardous materials within jurisdictional buffer zone. If it has leached into the water and then has subsequently gone into the intermittent stream and then BBW, then we have further issues. I do see that the consultant is online. I did not receive a restoration plan in time for this meeting. The applicant and the representative are both aware that I need this restoration plan prior to next meeting. And they both have said that they will get it to me.
So if I hear you right, doesn't the state have some rights in this issue?
Yes, yep, so as it sits right now, it's only DEP asbestos, it's not DEP wetlands and waterways.
Okay.
If it
Thank you.
has leached, if asbestos has leached into the water, then DEP Wetlands and Waterways becomes involved. So right now, it's DEP Asbestos and myself.
All right. That makes it a little easier on me, because
Yes.
otherwise the state trumps us, and we've
Yeah.
gotta call them in, and
Yeah.
we release everything to them.
So, right now, I've explained to the property owner, there seemed to be some confusion of what was needed, considering how many parties are involved. I explained to her that I need a plan. It could be option A could be outlining, removing all the materials from the buffer zone. Option B could be, this is what we're going to do if it's leached, but no matter what, I need a plan. I need some sort of something that we can look at.
Okay, now, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they're also out of date on this violation.
They are.
That's
They
perfect.
are expired.
That's just perfect.
So,
Okay, work with them, because my recommendation would be come back on the 23rd,
okay,
and if we don't get much traction, then,
you got it.
especially with the asbestos issue,
Yep,
you can't, that is a significant issue. Very bad.
I agree.
Okay, come back to us on the 23rd. Anybody have a question, Ryan?
I do not have a question. I did notice somebody in the audience that might want to have a question later. if that's-
Who?
if
The
that's admissible.
property owner is here.
Oh, well, yeah, this is not being settled tonight by any means.
Yep.
Milne,
No questions at this time.
Mazzucchelli?
I don't have anything else.
So, sorry, Bill, not to interrupt, just as a general PSA for the property owner, the applicant, next Thursday by noon, everything needs to be in.
I'd like to see someone in here
Okay,
on the 23rd.
okay.
I think it would be important for them to understand the significance of these issues. Yes?
I'm here tonight.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry. You have to come up to a microphone and identify yourself?
Yes, my name is Margaret Murray, and I'm a representative of that property, as well as.
Yes,
Sue
Margaret.
is our engineer. So we are here tonight.
Okay, so this is a significant issue, you realize that?
That's why I'm here, absolutely.
Okay, and it is the commission's, not mine, the commission's recommendation that you work very closely with the agent to get this situation solved, because we're out of date on an enforcement order, and generally speaking, we turn it to the courts. We're not gonna do that, because we wanna get this solved in an amicable fashion, because it's a town issue, and we wanna keep it that way. However, we're dealing with some really bad things. So, work with Brika, come back on the 23rd. Brika, will you have more information for us on where we stand?
Yep.
Thank you,
can
Margaret,
liaise
for
on it.
coming forward and identifying yourself. We appreciate that.
I'm happy to be here. As I said, I do have a representative on Zoom here, too.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen? Johnson?
No,
Okay, then we'll continue this until the next meeting on the 23rd. Thank you for the update on that, everyone. My goodness, I thought this was gonna be a quick meeting tonight. How wrong I am again.
past my bedtime.
No, that's not new. Actually, I'm glad Patrick is out, because he would be chiding me on that. Bill, you're always wrong. I said, yes, I am. We have minutes to approve. I'm gonna abstain, because that was a bad date for me. That was the date of my surgery, May 12th. So, somebody want to take a motion to approve the minutes from the May 12 meeting? And we really need to, because the state only gives you so many days before you have to post. Somebody make a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Miller, I give a motion to approve the minutes from May 12th.
Thank you. I have a second?
Andrew Mazzucchelli, I second.
Vote. Ryan?
Michael Ryan, vote to approve the minutes.
Jeff Miller votes to approve.
Andrew Mazzucchelli, vote to approve.
I abstain. Johnson, we need you to vote to approve in order to have quorum.
I vote to approve.
There you go. Minutes are approved. Here, here. Any other discussions? Oh, I want to thank, I guess it was Tyler. We got the letter to Did you do that?
That was with the help of Julie up in town
To Big Y
administration.
on the thing? Thank you. That was great. And that's what we should do, is thanking the sponsors for the cleanup at Delcart, for giving their product and their support behind what we do. That's excellent. And that was a terrific event. I don't know, I want to, Ed Seismansky, who lives on the side of Delcart, has posted on Facebook some wonderful pictures of waterfowl and birds and animals in Delcart, and it is so encouraging to see that, and knowing that that waterway there was almost dead a few years ago from an overgrowth of invasive species and lily pads, and I'm probably going back maybe 6-7 years, and it's amazing how it all comes back. And we can all, because we share in that responsibility, that is a Conservation Commission property, and you should all feel very proud of what we've accomplished with that. And I want to give a shout out to Ed Seismansky, who's done a terrific job of being kind of a spearhead on that property in terms of the blogging. So here. I guess the only thing left to do is a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Miller, I give you a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Mr. Kelly, second.
Does anybody object to us leaving?
No objections.
We're leaving.
Zero objections.
Tyler, anything you sign?
Recording stopped.
You got stuff to
The
sign?
old COCs, I think, right?
Yeah.
This is a chair